What's a question that sounds innocent, but in actuality is offensive? Not sure about innocent, but as a wheelchair user, one question I get from complete strangers in public is, "Can you have sex?" I wish I was joking. Even before saying hi, they could ask that. One of my ex-boyfriends has spina bifida. We dated for about a year and a half, and during our time together I learned that the disabled have to deal with shit daily that most of us can't even fathom. I was constantly addressed by people when they needed to ask him something. Like the waiter always asked me what he wanted to drink or if he was ready to order. Most people assumed I was his caretaker or a relative because, OMG, what else would be the reason we were out together, right? When they did realize we were a couple, there were always inappropriate questions. A waitress asked me flat out if I was dating him because he made good money and got benefits. Ma'am, definitely not. What benefits? There were so many questions about our sex life during dinner, from strangers and friends. Not sure which was more awkward. Someone asked if we were poly or swing because how else could I be satisfied? Comments about how I was a caregiver and how even if I wasn't, I was because wheelchair and he would always need help. Don't get me started on accessibility in general and making plans to do literally anything with anyone. Yeah, we're not together anymore because disabled people can also be jerks, but that relationship taught me a lot about all the boundaries. Yes, you got quite a glimpse of what we go through. I've said for a long time that the most difficult part of disability isn't the disability itself, but rather how we're treated and spoken to. And yes, disabled people can be jerks like everyone else, unfortunately. I had to break off relations with a few of them, mostly for being racist. I'm Asian Canadian. Here, now. I think that's illegal. When are you going to have a baby? My wife's aunts used to ask us this a lot. She finally replied truthfully, we did. She died before coming to term. It was the only time we've been successful in our, at the time, 15 years together. Thanks for asking. They have not asked again. I am sorry for your loss. I can now conquer anything. She made me a far better person with gratitude and happiness in simply being content. Thank you for your kind words. Cheers. We got this question from my mother-in-law. Literally 3 weeks after our second child died at 9 months old. Added a whole new layer to the impropriety. Solidarity for shitty mother-in-laws who make inappropriate comments when you have a dead baby. I was in labor with my stillborn just after we learned he had already passed. My mother-in-law came to sit with me while my husband ran home to get a few things, and I didn't want to be alone. She looked at me and said, I always got pregnant when I wanted to and never lost a baby. I also struggle with fertility issues. This was 4 months ago, and I'm sure we'll get lots of, when are you having another baby questions at a family wedding with them tomorrow. WTF. What was even the point of that comment? That sounds like something a movie villain would say. Oh my god. I am both furious and heartbroken for you. I can't imagine your pain. I really hope you don't take a single hurtful word from her, or anyone, to heart. I don't know if I need to tell you this, but from personal experience, don't be harsh with yourself. Sometimes you can do everything right and things still go horribly wrong. Heal at your own pace. I'm sorry you have to prepare yourself for heartless behavior from people that somehow don't understand that the death of a child isn't something a parent just gets over. I hope you have or find a good support system to offset their BS. I wish you all the good luck in the world in fulfilling whatever family goals you have and make. Ever since getting sterilized, I love responding that I can't without any further explanation and letting them squirm in their well-earned discomfort. I am very happily sterile, so it doesn't bother me that I can't. But I hope my doing this makes the person think twice before asking the next person, who very well might not be able to conceive/carry to term a child despite desperately wanting one and could therefore be really hurt by those words. I had a hysterectomy years ago due to health issues and considered the sterilization a bonus, as I didn't want kids anyway. On the rare occasion someone responds to my polite, I'm not having kids, with some variation of you never know/might change your mind. I tell them about the hysterectomy, for the same reason, maybe they'll think twice before saying something like that in the future. People should really accept someone's answer about serious things like that, at best. It's obnoxious, assuming you know my wishes better than I do, and at worst it's rubbing salt in a wound, infertility/pregnancy loss/any number of reproductive complications someone may not wish to discuss with you. My wife had to have a hysterectomy after finding stage 1 endometrial cancer when we lost our third. I think she secretly enjoys telling people to get them to STFU when they ask if we're having another child. As soon as I can get some dirt on the security guard outside of the maternity ward, she's the last piece of the puzzle. I used to respond to all my in-laws with, you can't get pregnant the way we do it. My wife eventually had to ask me to stop replying that way because her mom begged her to. A family member asked this Of my husband and I. He crinkled up his nose, looked confused, and said, what? Like, for dinner? Blessed silence for a while after that. I'm absolutely keeping that man. I'm absolutely keeping that man. What? Like, for dinner? As someone who had some troubles conceiving, I leaned how that can be uncomfortable. Yep, this was also my personal experience and why my response to this question has always been, you have no idea what people might be going through, so thank you for your extremely inappropriate question. As an Asian who is a native English speaker, how do you speak English so well? Drives me batty. I feel this one hard. I go 2 night score, GI. You should try it too for your idiocy. Are you pregnant? How far along are you? No, I'm just fat. Or if they know you're pregnant, you must be due so soon / you look like you're ready to pop. Yeah. In like 3 to 4 months, thanks. Or my personal favorite, from my grandma a couple months ago, I'm due in December, aren't you a little big for this stage? Fat with endometriosis here, sometimes my endo belly really makes me look pregnant. Why are you single? Because I'm waiting for a girl as great as you, Mom. My answer always was. I'm waiting to meet someone who can make me as happy as I can make them. Never happened and I am more than okay with that. I just say, I just got lucky I guess. And they either laugh or look offended. Hated that question when I was single. I guess it is meant as a compliment of sorts, but it always made me feel as if there was something wrong with me. I think it really depends on who's asking. But yeah. My grandma asks shit like that all the time. I love her, but she's insanely nosy, and I don't think she realizes how it can seem intrusive or almost offensive when asked in certain ways. To wheelchair users / people with disabilities, what's wrong with you? Or, what happened to you? I have 2 stock answers to what happened to you. 1. I asked invasive questions about someone's disability and this was the consequence. 2. I hurt myself waterboarding at Guantanamo Bay. For kids who ask and don't know any better, my buddy tells them, I tried a cigarette, one time. Why are you so quiet? Why are you so fucking nosy? And if you give a real answer like, oh, 'cause I was bullied as a kid for being weird so now I just keep all my thoughts inside because I'd rather be ignored than risk being disliked, suddenly you're the bad guy for making them feel bad. So instead you just gotta go, oh, you know, that's just how I am. It's less annoying to other people. You should give it a go. Then when you finally talk they're like, oh look who's a chatterbox all of a sudden, and completely dismiss what you've said as even being worth a response. I learned that I'm not actually really quiet, there are just a lot of people that I really don't like. This, if it's considered rude to ask people, why do you talk so much, then it should be rude to ask, why are you so quiet? When are you going to get a real job? This from my family when I was working as a contract engineer and spending 6 months to 2 years in different locations, earning twice what most engineers were making. I would usually take a month off between projects and in their eyes I was always out of work and couldn't hold a job. Apparently, the real job is the one where you're getting paid scraps. It's where OP is from. But in the US so many people are so brainwashed into thinking that work must be suffering that it wouldn't surprise me. I used to work as a 911 dispatcher and the amount of random people that would ask me if I ever listened to someone die astounded me. Like thanks I really want to relive that right now in the grocery store. And they never really seemed to realize how messed up that question was, they were always so morbidly cheerful about it. What caused you to get PTSD? / how did you get PTSD? If the answer isn't volunteered, do not ask anybody that. Asking me why I'm in a wheelchair, at least if you're an adult. Kids I will answer all of the questions all day long. Or my kids do it for me. In fact my kids do it for me if an adult asks, too. Differences with adults my teenage son will give them a death stare in response and my 7-year-old will very sweetly tell them it's actually quite rude to ask such personal questions. Your kids sound awesome and you should be proud. Don't you'll make me cry. Long week. But yeah, they're awesome. You don't drink? Why? People don't drink for a lot of reasons like religion, pregnancy, or just aren't interested. I don't drink due to the fact I overdid it and it started to ruin my life. I always answer, because I got too good at it. That usually makes them laugh and stop the questions, but it's really none of anyone's business. I like RDJ's response for that question. I'm allergic. It makes break out in handcuffs. XGF took issue with me if I did not order wine, beer, or alcohol when we went out to dinner, because that's what adults are supposed to do. I especially hate it when you don't drink, is followed by we'll have to change that. No, we will not. Now I feel uncomfortable leaving any food or non-alcoholic drink unattended in your presence. We'll have to change that. But I am a drinker, but whenever someone comments to me that they don't drink, or have never drank, I'm always like Aeneas. It's so much cheaper that way. What kind of a loser needs to push booze on a non-drinker? Where are you from? No, where are you really from? OMG. I asked a coworker once where he was from, and he was like, well, technically this small town in Mexico, and I got so embarrassed. I was like, no. Which high school did you go to? I have learned to ask, where did you grow up, as I live in a city where most people moved here later. I think that's a good approach. As long as that's the first, and perhaps last, question. Because a lot of times I get, where are you from, and when the answer is unsatisfactory, because it's not outside North America, and I'm not white, the immediate follow-up question is, no. Where did you grow up? Then, where were you born? Where are your parents from? Etc. My buddy used to get this all the time. His parents are from Korea, but he'd answer, I'm from here. No, but where were you born? Alabama, but we moved here when I was like 3 months old. That part. Quick story, I'm of African descent, African name, Canadian raised. I matched with this woman. She asked immediately where I was from. I replied, Toronto. She unmatched me instantly, but I'm from Toronto till I die. Jane Street. To my American friends, Jane St. is a well-known street that runs north to south. Also, know what's your real name? If you're from Africa, why are you white? Oh my god. Karen, you can't just go around asking people why they're white. I've gotten, how are you Muslim if you're white? And then refuse to believe there's an entire country in the Balkans that is majority Muslim and majority Muslim. They're even more confused about my southern accent. Even more when they meet any of my friends from my home country who have blonde hair and blue eyes. To an adopted person, so where are your real parents? Don't forget the occasional, oh, so you are an orphan, and yes, I have been asked this more than once after talking about being adopted. Have you tried wearing makeup? Usually means you're unattractive without it. My mom always used to say you'd look so much nicer with just a bit of makeup on. Thanks mom. Did you take your ADD meds? Cause I know they're your uppers. My mom, last month, on my birthday, because I was in a good mood and chatty, edited to add that I wasn't on my meds that day. I usually only take them when I have work. And that day was a Sunday. Man, nothing crushes my soul like being asked this. Sorry, I annoyed you with my existence. You just put into words what bothers me a lot about this question. Thank you. The whole asking veterans if they ever killed anyone. You'd think the majority of people would realize that's a fucked up question, but from family and friends that served it seems to be common. Like WTF is wrong with people. I read a story where someone responded, yup, I did, tons of people. Never bothered me in the slightest. I just did what was required of me. I probably should have tried harder as a medic. It's like the slightly less offensive version of my grandfather killed tons of Nazis. Worst mechanic in the Luftwaffe. Well, my grandfather died in a concentration camp, fell off the guard tower. Careful with that. My grandfather died in a concentration camp. A guard fell on him from a tower. In a similar vein, my grandpa's Marine brother had a fake Chinese medal made up for him, complete with detailed citation, for his actions during the Korean War. It stated that he incapacitated dozens/hundreds of US Marines, and saved countless Chinese lives. He was a Navy cook on a troop transport. My friend's Nan had dementia, and at a NYE party when I was about 14 she gripped my arm and whispered, my husband was a hero to the Nazis. Probably the greatest asset they ever had, and then started rambling about something else. Long after her death we had had a few drinks and I got up the courage to mention it to my mate. She was mortified and said, oh no. No, a couple of 1,000 pounds of artillery got flooded on his watch and she liked teasing him about it. She was meant to say, if only he'd been on their side. I dated this guy like 20 years ago, who had just come home from his tour during OAF. We were super casual, basically just hooking up. One night, after we had been together, he asked if I knew what he liked best about me. I was expecting something sexual, given our relationship and the situation at the moment. But he said, you've never asked me how many people I've killed. I was absolutely horrified, just stared at him for a while. I finally said, who the fuck would ever ask that? He looked so sad, and softly said everyone. Absolutely everyone. I hope he's okay. My dad served 23 years and during OAF too, and I have never asked what he did. But every once in a while he'll talk about his experience over there. Mostly funny stories, people he served with, or places/countries he's traveled to. And it's weird when people ask me what my dad did specifically. I know what they're asking. When I mention he was infantry and did 2 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, I just say, I don't know, I've never asked, because literally why would I even want to know that about my dad? He is the most thoughtful, loving, caring, and respectful person I know. And it's not that I don't want to tarnish that idea of him. He came back with PTSD. What else could have happened? It's just weird and disrespectful to ask any veteran that question. We had a Veterans Day celebration during middle school where our teachers invited veterans for us to get to know them. I remember asking the veterans in my group what their favorite pranks were when they were serving. I remember this fondly because of how happy and excited they were answering it. My main point of sharing this is that there are terrible questions like you said, but there are some fantastic ones to ask as well. Have you lost weight? I've dealt with a lifelong eating disorder. I look my best when I'm actually at my worst. Have you tried not being depressed? What's the craziest thing that's happened at your job? I'm a social worker and my partner is a nurse. The stories aren't crazy in a funny way. They're crazy in an awful and devastating way. I don't want to share someone's worst day of their life and relive a terrible day for me. For your morbid curiosity, asking a disabled person what's wrong with them. Oh, you're very exotic looking. Was your father a GI? Michael Scott. The Office. Fantastic joke. Devastatingly inappropriate. When are the two of you planning to have kids? Not sure, but we practice a lot. I legit used this line once. It was with my girlfriend's friends' husbands who are very blue collar. It got a big laugh. I have alopecia and people would ask, what's wrong with your hair? I mean, I guess it was asked innocently, but it was as insulting to me as asking someone why they're so fat. Asking a woman who's upset, are you on your period or something, highly annoying question to hear. Asking trans people what is in their pants. If you are not a doctor or nurse or something of mine carer or spouse, you do not need this information. Every question, over the years, I've received about being a lesbian is usually offensive. Most are some variation of, how do you have sex with your wife? Who wears the pants in the family? How do you decide who does what? Have you dated a man before? How do you know you're really a lesbian if you haven't been with a man? Anytime someone asks that last question, they should immediately be hit back with the inverse. How do you know you're really straight if you've never been with a same gender? Hitting them with a fish also works, but not many people carry fish around with them anymore. On that same note, so who's the man in your relationship? What does that even mean? Years later I still think about that question and wish I had said, do you mean sexually? There isn't one, that's the whole point, is how I've answered it before. Or the age-old, are you sure? You're too pretty to be a lesbian. That is insulting in several different facets, but BC they called you pretty. You're supposed to take it as a compliment. I'm an ICU nurse and people ask me all the time what COVID in the ICU was like. If I can ever open up that box of trauma that I have stored very, very deep in my closet, I'll let you know. Why didn't you have any kids? Do you regret it now? I'd go super dark, I did, but they all kept dying. I feel like I piss people off every time I respond by telling them how much I enjoy my free time and minimum of a solid 7 hours of sleep every night. I'm okay with that, though. There is not a single motherly instinct in my body and I have disliked kids since I was a kid. I would 100% be a runaway/deadbeat mom. No, I do not regret it. I do like my friends' kids though BC I get to play with toys and make funny noises at them then they go away. Impotence and multiple financially crippling rounds of IVF. No, not really, but you look like a fucking bellend now, don't you? Who's going to look after you when you're older is a real gem. That's an incredibly selfish reason to have children. If you don't believe in God, how can you be moral? If you need the threat of hell to keep you from murdering your neighbors, you're not a very good person, are you? I used to get that all the time. To be fair, it was mainly in grade school. My favorite version was always, why do you want to go to hell? And I had to explain hell doesn't exist and they usually thought I was stupid or lying. Indoctrination ran deep. Oh, I'm not. It's very freeing. I rape, steal and murder all I want. When will you give your child a baby brother/sister? In America, asking someone, usually a person of color, where are you really from? Why did you stop drinking? People ask me all the time and it's always a shock to people when I then bluntly tell them I have severe addiction issues and don't want to end up snorting Benadryl and buying a bag of Coke each night. Do you work? As a disabled person who floats into dating now and again, I'm not shy about my condition and how I navigate it. I always think they're asking about my job, but they're like, no. Can you give handjobs and stuff? Are you normal? One day I lost my filter and told the guy my hands weren't the issue but him not being big enough to make a handful was. I maintained eye contact while I waited on my food, now to go, and he didn't say a word. I left. What are you? This is what ignorant people say when they're trying to find out what ethnicity you are because they can't tell by looking at you. Because if you aren't white, they can look at you and know what you are. So, they know how to treat you. And what stereotypes you fit. What they ask, are you trying for children? What I hear, so you guy raw doggin' or what? You bustin' in them guts or what? Bruh, we are in the middle of dinner. Yep, we've been blasting big loads of cummies into mommy's baby cave most nights. When's your due date? My dad had direct experience with this and learned from it. He told me, don't ask unless you see the baby literally being born, aka it's none of our business. Had a massage in Thailand and 2 ladies were fondling my stomach till one of them asked if I was pregnant. Literally just had a big lunch. This is a nightmare as someone who had really bad diastasis recti. Did you just wake up or something? Nobody asks this innocently. They're commenting on how disheveled you look. Because you probably look disheveled. Can I touch your hair? My friend once responded with, you mean on my head, right? Rolling on the floor laughing. When I got this question, I would ask the person if they thought I was a pet. I don't get the question anymore because I've developed RBF. They don't even ask sometimes. I remember one time in 3rd grade, me, white, and my friend Donald, black, spent 10 seconds touching the hair on each other's head. It was fun and interesting, but that was the last time I did that or asked about it. Was asked this by a young woman while driving. It was our first date. I was unaware that she hadn't been around many white people. After one run through, she grabbed my hair with both hands, yelling, "It's so soft." I was driving, on the freeway, at 70 miles per hour. Do you believe in /practice? It's always a way for the person to tell you all about their own faith, be it in a deity or some sort of alternative healing. What's wrong with you, to someone with a disability or medical condition? Depends on how the question is asked. A coworker, who is old enough to be my grandfather, and who I never talked to before, asked me, "You're gay, right?" With a knowing nod, reacted to my confusion with a chuckle and just left. I don't mind people asking, but that was an obvious attempt to intimidate. The company thought the same, and now that guy doesn't even dare to look at me. Why don't you smile? Typically an older, male stranger to a younger woman. As a parent of multiples, how were your kids conceived? Why the fuck would anyone ask someone that? How much, insert Native American tribe here, are you? Question is never asked of anybody else's ancestry. Blood quantum was a concept started by colonizers as they tried to determine how close they were to wiping out the native peoples. I'm an enrolled citizen of the Cherokee Nation and my family can be traced back to the mid-1700s. But generally the first thing people ask is, how much Cherokee are you? And it's a painful question because it implies I have to prove myself. When I tell them I'm also British or Italian, that question has never come up. Not Native American, but indigenous, to sap me. I usually say, I'm Sammy and I'm an entire person. My arm isn't a different ethnicity than my leg. If that's what you were wondering. To me, the mother of an autistic child, oh, what's wrong with her? More often than not what they mean to ask is, what is her condition/disability, and are just inelegant in their language, but it really sets my teeth on edge. I am sure this is probably the experience of many who are either disabled themselves or have loved ones who are disabled and people feeling entitled to ask and then doing so in just the worst way. So, when's it due to someone who has not explicitly told you that they are pregnant? I had a major abdominal surgery, hysterectomy, when I was in my early 20s. My stomach was swollen a bit and my husband and I went to pick up our car from the repair shop. The guy working the counter looked at me and said, "When is the baby coming?" Looking right at my stomach. Before my husband could say anything, I looked at the dude's beer belly and asked him when his baby was coming. I then told him I was not pregnant. He turned bright red and got quiet real fast. I'm sure he never made that mistake again. When are you two getting married? Meanwhile, I have to do everything to not go into whole spiel about how badly me getting epilepsy halfway through put us both behind in life. We did go ring shopping recently, so I'll edit if there's an update one day. I'm a first responder and when people find out I get asked, what's the worst thing you've ever seen/the worst call you've been to? They're trying to make conversation. I get it. The worst call I've been to haunts my dreams. I don't want to talk about it with you. Every question I've ever asked, apparently, nods in autism. How did you get him? I've had 3 different people ask me that I regards to my husband. Apparently, I look like a troll to these people. Was it planned? Asked by no less than 10 people when we announced our pregnancy after being together for 5 years, we are in our late 30s and tried to get pregnant for a year and a half. It is just not an okay questions to ask. I'm colorblind and the first thing people do when you tell them is point to the nearest thing and ask, what color is that? It's so incredibly offensive and annoying to be tested. If someone told you they were deaf, would you immediately shout in their ear to be sure? Why are you so skinny? Where are you really from? I had an awkward time with that. I was in Scotland and a woman I was sharing a spot with for a couple nights had an American accent. Or so I thought. I asked her where she was from because I hadn't conversed with many Americans in the previous 8 months. She looked put off and told me the respective nationalities of her mother and her father. I apologized and explained I thought she was from the States and wondered whereabouts. I was later informed that in Germany they often teach excellent English with an American accent over one of the British accents or other styles. Anyhow, I wasn't asking her ethnicity, and that is not something I would do unless it was topical and immediately germane, such as we were discussing family history or cultural differences, etc. After I explained why I had asked where she was from, I was expecting a response along the lines of LA or Denver. We got into a good and interesting conversation around traveling and living in various places around Europe and Asia. 4 or 6 cylinder. And I'm just here like, you heard me say wiper blades, right? Until you find out that the manufacturer used different sized blades for each version of that car. It's annoying, I get it. But it's literally a prompt on the screen to build the vehicle before they can look up any parts. Someone experienced might just put in any engine because they know it doesn't matter, but I'm sure they also deal with people that get their wiper blades then say, oh, and how much are spark plugs? So if they have the engine size already, they can find the correct plugs. Are you planning to have kids? Or more kids? Pretty big age gap in the kids, huh? Stop asking if we are having unprotected sex. Also, we might have a gap due to miscarriages, thanks for prying. Are your kids spoiled? No, they always smell like this. Had bottom surgery yet? So, not your business, also yet implies it is coming. Honestly, anything genital related is insane to ask. Whether it's to a trans person or not. Every single time someone learns I'm trans, the first question I get is some variation of, what's in your pants? They always try and word it differently to make it sound less obviously creepy. But there's really no nice way to ask if I'm still packing meat unless you're my doctor. Had surgery yet? Trans related or not? No, not in this climate. This is so much funnier if you're not trans. Like, you will become a girl. Yup. I have multiple trans friends, and the only one who I know for certain has gone through bottom surgery is the one who actively shared that info with me when they were complaining about the recovery process. I knew they were wanting to do it before, so I was just happy for them and offered my congratulations. It's really not that hard to not be an asshole. What church do you belong to? What kind of name is that? Question during an interview, why should I hire you? Answer from job candidate, I could ask you the same. Why should I work for you? And, what is your ideal job? Seems to be more like, now lie that this is your dream job. Or, bye. Why are you gay/trans/bi etc.? I didn't choose this. I just am okay. Why are you gay? Why are you straight? When did you decide to be straight? You still don't have kids? Are you here for your MRS degree? No, I value higher education. I'm not here just to find a husband. I'm glad you clarified. I was trying to figure out what the hell an MRS degree was before I finished the sentence and couldn't figure it out. Was feeling awfully stupid for a second there. Do people ask this question? I got asked that my first day of engineering school, which was about 5 years ago. I didn't realize what it meant. I went to a Christian college and the unofficial motto was ring by spring or get your money back. It was because a lot of the girls there were only attending to get a husband. How are you always so skinny? Or remarks like, must be nice not to have to worry about what you eat. No, cause actually I have to force myself to eat more than I want to so I don't turn into a bag of bones and cry when I look in the mirror and can see each rib. As an Asian who is a native English speaker, how do you speak English so well? Drives me batty. Bonus variation exclusive to Americans, why don't you have an accent? How old are you? I've seen faces fall so fast when the question is genuinely asked in an innocent way. Can I talk to the man in charge? I think they might realize this one is offensive. I think it's a question designed to marginalize and or belittle whoever it's spoken to. JMO. Of course. Used to be a tech supervisor for a big IT company back in the 90s, so would be a point of escalation for customers who had called in, either to help the rep they were speaking to, or if the call was going sideways, then to take over the call. This being the 90s, there weren't a lot of women who worked in tech support, but those who did were generally really good as they had spent a lot of time fighting against prejudice, working harder to prove themselves. I practically never had anything escalated by this one rep, so it was a surprise when she called me directly. I answered and she was almost in tears because a customer wouldn't do anything she asked and would only speak to a man. I took the call of her and spoke to this horribly sexist arsehole, very quickly fixing the problem, commenting on each step, as my colleague already told you. At the end of the call, the arsehole was throwing praise at me and wanted to speak to my boss to say how happy he was with me. I'll put you through to her. He hung up. Rather than speak to my boss. I have still had people ask who the wife is. I'm a man married to a man. Yes, in the year 2025. Does the carpet match the drapes? A redhead friend of mine liked to tell people she had hardwood floors. Funny story about that. So, I was in a lesbian group on Facebook and someone asked us so, carpet or hardwood? Me, well, I prefer hardwood because I have a bird and it makes sweeping up seeds easier. Other answers included, well, it depends on the type of carpet and if it's included with the house. I prefer rugs. After about 50 answers, someone finally said, no, she didn't mean literally. I wouldn't say this sounds innocent. On what planet is this an innocent question? To someone who legally chose a name different from birth, what was your name before? Oops. Still grateful for the friend who very kindly explained to me why it's not a good idea to ask. I think they sense my autism far before anyone else. Even worse if they phrase it as, what's your real name? If I wanted to tell people that, I probably wouldn't have changed my name. Like half the shit I get asked on the daily as a trans person. You do not need to know what surgeries I have had or what is in my pants or how I fuck or any of that. It is not your business unless you are trying to get into my pants. In which case, I am engaged. Are you planning on having kids? What did the person die from? Why are you so quiet? My white family asking me what part of Mexico my Hispanic family is from. It's compounded by the fact that A, my Hispanic family can trace its roots to American land further back than my white family can, and B, the part of Mexico my Hispanic family is from was stolen by the US. And of course C, the wild assumption all Latinos are Mexican. Also, when I explain this to them, they then get offended. The audacity. Have you lost weight? Fuck you. People only ask you that if they think you're fat. Did you get enough sleep last night? Why haven't you had kids yet? When are you having kids? STFU Brenda. Me as a 6-year-old, why is your skin so dark? What was your name before transition? It was Nona Yafakin Bisnes.